Lessons from Jonah, Part 9. In Jonah chapter 3, verse 10, it says, When God saw what they did, and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring on them the destruction he had threatened. This is the importance of us being hopeful. God chose not to bring destruction to the Ninevites, and he chose not to do this because he saw how they had turned from their evil ways. Lesson number 1 is stay hopeful toward God. In Jonah chapter 4, verse 1, it says, But to Jonah this seemed very wrong, and he became angry. Lesson number 2, let's not have a vengeful heart. We should not ask God to actually have mercy on us, but not have mercy on someone else. We don't deserve God's grace and mercy any more than they do. One person is not better than another. In Jonah chapter 4, verses 2 and 4, it says, He prayed to the Lord, Isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? That is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live. But the Lord replied, Is it right for you to be angry? Notice Jonah's heart posture now. Earlier in Jonah's story, we actually saw how he was not blaming God, and his heart posture back then was also obedient to God. Now we see a different Jonah. We see that his heart posture is now angry, argumentative, and depressed. Lesson number 3, let us not argue, especially with God. In Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 to 9, it says, For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Lesson number 4, don't allow someone else to get you depressed. Had Jonah remembered where he was less than a week ago, which was in the big fish's belly, he may have thought differently about saying to God, Take away my life because it's better for me to die than to live. The one thing that I want to point out also before I read the encouraging scripture is when you can't celebrate God's blessings in someone else's life, it shows your lack of growth. My encouraging scripture is going to come from a portion of Jonah chapter 4, verse 2. And before I read it, I want people to pay attention to the present tense of how Jonah describes God. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. The story of Jonah was written before any of us on this earth now were ever born. But it's the same God. He is still gracious, still compassionate, still slow to anger, and still abounding in love.